Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we have Hawks looking like junk. Hopefully no news is good news when it comes to the hot stove league for the Cubs. D-Rose has a pee-pee incident, and we've got a big show announcement. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is in full swing, so they are only 90 minutes from the city limits. Fun for the whole family. Head on over to icehogs.com. Get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. How are you doing, Alex?
I am doing swell.
So we've got a big show announcement. You tweeted about it a week or so ago or so, but really want to hammer it home on the show. If you like listening to the show and you are in the Chicagoland area and you like pizza, then February 15th, it's a Thursday night at 7 o'clock Chicago time, we'll be doing a live show in conjunction with our friends at Ball. So we'll be doing a joint live podcast from Peace Pizza, North Avenue in Chicago. It's going to be a fun time, and we encourage you all to come out. High fives and hilarities all around.
Yeah, I am super stoked for this. I think that it's going to be a really fun night. I encourage anyone to come out there because I haven't been there yet, but I've heard nothing but amazing things about this pizza joint. So really looking forward to this.
Yeah, the address is 1927 West North Avenue in Chicago. So we will be broadcasting at 7, and we encourage everybody to come out and have fun and eat some delicious pizza because they were named by a pizza industry magazine as best pizza in the country. So head down there, listen to us, joke about sports, eat some pizza, get some high fives, and have a good time.
I've been wanting to share this. I had a dream earlier this week about this show, and for some reason, John Lackey was sitting right next to us, and he said, I have a score to settle with you guys because you've been talking about me on your show. I meant to tweet that at you. I totally forgot about it, but I thought this was the perfect time to tell you about that.
And I got a long memory. I would love on the live broadcast to have John Lackey challenge me to an arm wrestling match. That would be awesome.
It would be so great, and Bowell and I would just be like going rah-rah by you guys and hyping up the whole restaurant. It would be just wonderful.
That would be awesome. I hope that there are some professional athletes that are just there for dinner, and we can either talk at them or have them join us.
Yeah, that would be pretty epic. I know my brother might come, and he's kind of a big-time online NBA writer, so we have an NBA source on hold just in case we need it. So this is going to be a really awesome night, and I already know some people on Twitter who have expressed interest in coming. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Javi Baez, if you're out there, you can come hang out with us.
Yeah, I'd be totally cool with that.
So yeah, moving into actual sports, pretty quiet week. We've got tiny bit of Bulls, not too much Bears. I had a Bears question emailed to me, some Blackhawks, and then I want to talk about Derrick Rose.
I don't know much about the Derrick Rose, so I'm gonna look that up right now and kind of see what that's about.
Yeah, it's not the biggest story. It's just such a Derrick Rose thing. So I guess while you're looking that up, I'll kind of preface it for everybody that hasn't read it. Is Derrick Rose got up and left off the bench. He plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers now, and their coach Tyronn Lue was trying to put him in the game, and he wasn't there. Like, he physically was not on the bench because he went to go to the bathroom, and he didn't let anybody know. And Derrick doesn't understand why Tyronn Lue is upset. He thinks he's upset because, quote, Derrick was staying hydrated, and that means he's got to go to the bathroom. But in reality, with what everybody else would think, is that he just got up and left and didn't let anybody know, which is something that happened with him in New York as well.
Yeah, I'm looking it up on Twitter now, and yeah, this is did this just happen today or yesterday?
Yeah, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday.
I mean, it's not like it's that big of a deal, but it is such a Derrick Rose thing to happen. Like, it's just he's so oblivious to the rest of the world. He just lives in Derrick Rose's land.
I mean, at least tell someone you're going to the bathroom. I mean, just all you have to say is, "Yo, I got to go to the bathroom." It's that easy.
I mean, but just think is how not on the same page he is in with his teammates, because none of his teammates were like, yo, he went to the bathroom. They were just like, no. That's how little they think of him. That's what it tells me.
Well, I mean, that Cleveland Cavaliers team right now is kind of a dumpster fire. If you've kind of followed what they've been doing, they've been losing a lot of games. They've been at each other's throats, and Kevin Love gets everything but love on that team.
Yeah, and honestly, if LeBron James does not make it to the NBA Finals this year, it is totally Derrick Rose's fault, because he totally Derrick Rosed LeBron James.
I mean, his contract is up, right? LeBron this year?
Yeah, after this year, I don't know if it's up or if he can opt out, but he's going to leave and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I was going to say he's pretty much as good as gone, and I would imagine that it would be a much bigger story if he left after like just a total collapse of a season. Because, I mean, it's one thing to like win a championship, and then it's like, okay, you've brought championships to Cleveland. He's not at the end of his career, but he is getting older. So it's like, all right, you go somewhere else. And though he did win a championship with Cleveland, if he were to leave under the circumstances right now, I think the story would be a lot different. Not exactly like Miami Heat different, but it'd kind of be like he'd be leaving on a sour note.
Because he would be leaving that team in just a complete disarray.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Once LeBron leaves that team, they are going to be terrible in the future.
Yeah, and I just wait for him to make his announcement. He's like, I'm going to bring my talents to the Bay Area and join the Golden State Warriors to win not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5 championships.
That whole thing was, I think, the source of a lot of the LeBron hate in Miami and just the hate for that team in general. I think if he didn't do it in that way, the hate wouldn't have been quite as strong those few years. And you wouldn't have had the whole country rooting for the Dallas Mavericks like they did in 2011. At least that's my opinion. There still would have been haters, but,
It's I guess it was for me, that's sort of the moment that I started hating him. I don't know if it was the actual decision per se, but it was a culmination of things for me. I liked LeBron James, and
Oh, me too.
then it was like, well, he spurned his hometown team, the team he grew up rooting for, joined a super team, and made it a public display, and just kind of just threw it in the face of all his fans. Like, oh, you rooted me on? Here, watch on the end of sit on the edge of your couch, biting your fingernails, waiting to see where I go. Oh, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, it was kind of a big FU, and that's what I think was a real turnoff. Once he came back to Cleveland, I didn't really hate him much. I don't really hate him much now. Yeah, there's a bit of drama with him, but he doesn't do anything like illegal or terrible. Sure, he's full of himself a little bit, but when you're a superstar like that, I mean, let's face it, Jordan was full of himself, and frankly, Jordan is kind of an asshole, but it's those days in Miami, I just think they were so tarnished by that whole thing. It felt so unnecessary to do that. If it would have been announced, LeBron goes to Miami Heat, it's like, well, okay, I know Cleveland's going to be pissed and I'd get their disappointment, but you wouldn't have had that whole just dramatic hoopla of it. That turns so many people off, I think.
I mean, and the thing is, like, I get if you're going to do that decision and you're going to turn heel, like, to use pro wrestling terms, you're going to turn heel, you're going to be the bad guy, fine. But LeBron James, he can't be the bad guy because he loves being loved too much. There's certain guys that are fine being the bad guy.
Yeah.
Isaiah Thomas, fine being the bad guy. Charles Barkley, fine being the bad guy.
Draymond Green, look at him.
Draymond Green, Reggie Miller. There's a lot of guys that just, it's fine. I'll be the villain.
I mean, Draymond Green embraces it. He wants to be that. It's not that he doesn't mind. He likes it.
Kobe Bryant liked being the bad guy, but it's LeBron James is not, and he's a very smart businessman. He's done very well for himself. He's an absolutely phenomenal basketball player, but he's another guy that just sort of socially clueless. I mean, again, where he congratulated, he wanted to be the first one to congratulate himself for scoring 30,000 points before he did it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like he has that many bad intentions. I just feel like sometimes he doesn't think it through, and he doesn't think, well, maybe I shouldn't say it this way. And like I said, he never does anything like so terrible that he deserves to be like, thrown in prison. He doesn't do anything illegal, or he doesn't, he doesn't bring the hate that, someone who did something very wrong to somebody did. It's just, there's just kind of an annoyance at times. And though it is annoying, overall, it's fairly harmless.
Yeah, there's nothing illegal. He's not a deadbeat dad. He doesn't have kids with 17 mothers. He's not going to jail. He's not doing drugs overtly, at least. There's nothing like, oh, bad dude, don't be a role model, or not a role model. But he's just like, when people make fun of him, it's not, I don't think it's because they hate him anymore. It's just like, oh God, it's like you sort of just like, he's like, I don't know. He's like if Urkel was good at basketball.
Yeah, there you go. That's
like, you don't hate Urkel. You're just like, he's goofy and annoying.
Yeah, but harmless.
Yeah, harmless.
And you can appreciate the good stuff he's done. I can appreciate his talent, and I can be the first one to say he's the best of this generation. And I can also really appreciate a lot of the good he's done in the community. You can appreciate that too, while being annoyed at times. Like I said, it's fairly harmless.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole point of this was that LeBron James is so good. He's gotten terrible basketball players NBA championship rings. And it's going to be Derrick Rose that ends this streak of getting to the NBA Finals. It's going to be Derrick Rose because he is a cursed player.
It's amazing to see where he was back in 2011 compared to now. If you would have told me that he would be this quote unquote cursed player with all these terrible injury problems without bringing a championship back to Chicago while playing with LeBron being on his third team, I would have said you were nuts. But it goes to show how one season can really change a lot. Obviously, we know that Derrick Rose was, he had his issues in college, the whole test taking thing, whatever. But at least when he was doing really well as a young bull, you didn't see as many of these shenanigans. And maybe that's just because we were distracted by just his raw and great talent. But now that there's a bunch of issues mixed in there, I think you see a little bit more of the weird stuff that goes on.
Yeah, and no matter what, the guy is filthy rich.
Yes, he is.
Filthy rich.
Yes, it's because his Adidas contract was worth how much? Like over 200 million?
Yeah, I think it was over 200 million. Plus, he's made over 100 million playing basketball. That man has a lot of money.
And that's the thing. If he were to retire, he wouldn't have to worry really financially for a bit.
I mean, at least a couple weeks.
Yeah, don't spend it all in one place.
Continuing on, basketball related is it's funny, when we really gave Nico a lot of the credit for the Bulls when they just started playing really well and going on that streak. But honestly, follow along with me for a second. Mm-hmm. Nico came back, and sure, he was playing well, but Nico is still there. It's Chris Dunn that's gone, and now they're playing like turd sandwiches. I think it was just when Chris Dunn started playing well is when Nico came back. Yep. Chris Dunn was actually the catalyst for the Bulls playing well, and now that he's got a broken face and is going to be out in the concussion protocol for however long, now the Bulls are playing bad, which is good in the long term because you got to get that top draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Before Dunn was playing, when it was just Markkanen, they were 3-18, and then both those guys came back. They started winning, and now Chris Dunn is gone. Like you said, they've dropped games, and I don't think we're the only ones who think that. I think a lot of people realize that Chris Dunn has provided a lot of just essential chemistry on this team, whether it's his talent, his raw talent alone, what he's doing on the court, how he's working with the team. I think he makes a really big difference, and that's exciting for the future. You hope he gets well, but, I'm not happy that he's hurt, but I'm kind of happy that we're starting to tank again, and trying to say that in the best way possible.
Only 3.5 games behind Atlanta for worst record in NBA.
Right, so exactly. Don't rush him. Don't rush him. Suck the rest of the way. Get everyone healthy. And then next year, if you get a really good draft pick and another really good essential talent, and you got Dunn, Markkanen, Levine, and whoever you draft next year, and you sign a few guys, and that's when you can really start to bring things together. Obviously, I'm not saying they're going to go from 0 to championship contender next year, but it would be a huge step in the rebuild process to get another big young talent in there, maybe another one, and then you sign it. You take a big step forward. So don't rush Dunn back. Make sure he's fully healthy so there are no problems in the future. There's no reason to rush. It's in their best interest that you take care of the roster as best you can now.
And it's funny with Chris Dunn out is you realize how bad Grant's floor vision is. I mean, Twitter exploded at one play when he was driving the lane and Larry Markkanen is just wide open under the basket and he didn't pass it to him. I mean, just absolutely wide open. He could have dunked it 6 times before anybody got over there and didn't pass it to him. And that was just like a stark representation of why Grant is not a building block of this team for the future.
No, he's not, and I think most of us have realized that for a while now. I think that one of the things that's going to be key to the rest of the way this season is honestly those kind of tank type players if you really want to get that good pick. Because, look, I'm still waiting for Nico to get traded because everyone basically is saying he's going to get traded. It's going to happen. We know. It's like, well, when's it going to happen? I'm sure it will. There's time, but I'm still really kind of waiting on it because once you trade away your veterans like him and Lopez, you're going to have to play a lot of those guys.
Absolutely. And I went on tankathon.com, not to hijack this, and they have a NBA draft lottery simulator. And I clicked it once, and the Bulls ended up with the third pick.
Interesting.
They have a 12.7% chance of getting in the top 3.
Hey, I'd take that. Tankathon.com. That's a good website.
Yeah, it's fun.
Website.
It's fun to just keep clicking on it, and I don't want to click on it again because I got a result I liked the first time.
Well, I'm going to do it now just for fun. Oh boy, this isn't what I'd want necessarily. It would have the Bulls as the 8th pick.
Oh, went down.
Yeah, it went down. Atlanta would be number 1, Dallas number 2, New York number 3, Orlando number 4, Sacramento number 5, Phoenix number 6, Memphis number 7, Bulls 8, and then you'd have the Brooklyn pick that's going to go to Cleveland, the Lakers pick that's going to go to Philadelphia. So not the same results you got.
Yeah, I mean, this Bulls team, they're still more fun to watch than I was expecting, but without Chris Dunn there, they just sort of flounder. And this is one of those moments where part of me wishes they would have kept Rajon Rondo, but part of me is glad they didn't because they would probably be winning more games.
Yeah, I'm glad they got rid of all that stuff. There's just, at this point, there was no need for them to be here. There was no need for them to be here last year.
The 3 alphas, come on now.
Oof, give me a break. Even though they did take a 2-0 lead in a playoff series, but whatever.
And one more Derrick Rose thing is I stopped at Toys R Us today to pick up something for my kid. And they had the NBA basketball action figures there. And I was just like, I wonder who they have. And they had a Derrick Rose one in a Knicks uniform. And it had the leg broken off in the package. And I was like, oh my God, it's got like real life features.
Jeez.
I should have just bought it just because he had the broken leg. I might go back.
Oh, you're bad.
Derrick Rose. It still cracks me up.
Man, I bought his jersey. In 2011. I was so ready for him to bring a championship back here, man.
And we all were. I still laugh at Giordano's had the get well Derrick Rose thing that note you could post and put on up on the restaurants. And I took my mother-in-law to Giordano's once when she was in town, and there was somebody had written one, "You owe us a championship, asshole." And I was just like, oh man, you just wrote that and put it on the wall at Giordano's.
Oh man. Oh yeah.
Chicagoans getting all Eagle fanish.
Yeah, wow. Man. I'll look back at his time with the Bulls and I just try to remember the good times, even though the end times were so frustrating. The last great moment of Derrick Rose in a Bulls uniform, and maybe even his career, I'll just never forget just watching him sink that buzzer beater against the Cavaliers in Game 3. And I was going crazy. The arena was going crazy. And at that moment, I thought, maybe there is hope for him yet to bring a championship here. That was the last glimmer of it, because the hope was at its peak from 2011 to 2012. Then the injuries came, and then he was just kind of on and off. And then in the end of that 2015 season, the playoffs before they got eliminated, it was the last glimmer of hope right there. And then after that, that's unfortunately when it was over.
Yeah, and that would be. I wouldn't be surprised if someday they brought Derek back on a minimum contract or something. I don't know, because
You know what I think they should do? This sounds crazy, but I think they should bring Noah back for like one more day, like a 1-day contract, and retire as a Bull, because I don't think he's going to be playing anymore.
Oh, why? He's still under contract. He's making money.
Well, yeah, but he's not. I mean, I'm not saying now when he's done with that contract, even if he doesn't play at all. I'm just saying after that contract, he's not. I don't think he's going to play anymore at this rate.
Oh no, yeah, nobody's going to sign him. Nobody. Yeah, let him retire as a Bull. But yeah,
Right.
He signed in a 4-year, $72 million contract. So this is the first year of it, I think. Or was it last year was the first year? Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. He was a Knick last year.
Okay, this is the second year of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So this year he's making $17.765 million. Next year he'll make $18.53. And the year after that, $19.295 million.
Wow. Look, I love Joe. I do, but I bet that the Knicks are probably regretting that contract big time.
Oh yeah, because that is just an unmovable contract. Maybe next year when it's an expiring contract, but right now, they're saddled with that.
I mean, when he was in his prime, he was fun to watch. But again, the injuries killed him, and he hasn't been the same player in like 4 years.
Oh yeah, he's not been the same in a while. And what really sucks is, let's see, New York for next season does not have much salary cap that they can that they could try to sign LeBron James. So it's it's not a good situation for them.
No, I've said, I think the Knicks are far worse off than the Bulls right now, just overall.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. For next season, the Bulls have the most practical cap. Wait, let's make sure. Oh, sorry. Lakers have the most practical cap space for next year. They have $47 million. The Bulls have 40. 76ers have 31. Blah, blah, blah. And you go all the way down. The Knicks have 5 million.
Oh. Wow. They are up Craps Creek.
Yeah, I mean, it could be worse. Oklahoma City and Golden State they are in the negative. So
hey, I mean, at least Golden State's been winning championships. The Knicks haven't exactly been winning championships.
Yeah, so they're at least, there was a time that the Bulls were in salary cap hell. They've wiggled their way out of it, and now they've just got money to burn. And if they're able to dump Nico, got a little more.
Exactly. That only makes the cap space go higher. I think it's another big reason why they're going to trade him. And, honestly, the reason we probably know that he hasn't been traded is because they want the first round draft pick for him. They're really trying to lobby to get that.
Yeah. And they're going to, that's their thing, is they want somebody's first round pick as part of the deal for Nico. And I imagine that's probably part of the sticking point, is because Utah right now is the pick number 11. But but I mean they've been hovering around a top 10 pick for a while, so it's that could be a really good pick if the lottery numbers hit.
Yeah, I'm looking at Nico right now, and let's see. This year he's making 12.5 million, and then next year he's going to be making 12.5 million. So think about it. You slash that cap space off the books, like you said, you're going to free up even more. So I think that at the end of the day, regardless of what they get in return, like they're going to lobby as hard as they can, but I really feel like their priority is going to be shipping him off.
Yeah, and
I really do.
And now the Bulls will have all this money to sign Kevin Durant or Chris Paul or Paul George or Russell Westbrook.
You're dreaming, right?
Yes, but they've got the money to.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay, here's a question for you. Out of those guys you just said, even if none of them are really likely, who would you think would be the most likely to become a Bull?
Not Durant.
I'd say, yeah, he'd be least likely.
Not Westbrook, because I think after Durant left Oklahoma City, he's kind of now dug in his heels that he's going to stay.
Personally, I'd say Paul George. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would say Paul George, because he's I don't know, he's wavered about leaving. I could see him being the only one. I would like to see a DeMarcus Cousins, but with that injury, I don't know. So
yeah, that was devastating.
Yeah, and it came during a time when he was getting a lot of minutes.
Yep.
So take notice, Tom Thibodeau. Take notice. All right. So talked NBA. I guess we can talk. Do you want to answer the Bears question that I got?
Yeah, why
I
don't
don't think there's really not much to talk about with the Bears. Free agency doesn't start for like another 5 or 6 weeks. I think 6 weeks. The draft isn't until after that. So this is a really slow time for for at least the Bears. Next week will be the Super Bowl.
I was going to say the big game's next week.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as Bears go, because we're not in it, and
not even.
So, got a question of with the positivity, the way we've been talking positive about the Bears and the new coaching staff and the new head coaching hire. Do we anticipate there being a massive leap in standing for the Bears next year?
Me personally, I think there will be a leap. I don't think it's going to be to the top. And one of the reasons I say that is just because they play in a really, really tough division. Because think about it, you're going to have to deal with Aaron Rodgers if he's completely healthy, which he probably will be. Though the Vikings will probably lose a lot of their offensive magic, there's still that defense. And if that's healthy and they get over that just massacre they took in the NFC Championship, they'll still be a threat. And heck, even the Lions are still a threat. So I definitely think that there will be a leap towards being a 500, maybe an above team. I just don't see quite the dramatic leap of a Rams per se. I think that that leap will take 2 years. So that's just kind of my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree. There will be absolutely a leap in. You'll see a leap in the record as far as what we've been used to. I think you'll see probably 7 to 8 win team, and people are going to be mad at that. but in reality is there's still a long way to go to get the roster where it needs to be.
Right.
You're still going to have a second-year quarterback, and you've brought it. You've, like you said, there is massive talent. This is one of the better divisions in football. There's other divisions out there where it's, the Bears could have competed this year. There's really bad divisions. This is not one of them. The Packers are going to retool. They're going to have a healthy Aaron Rodgers, like you said. The only hope is, that Vikings offense is going to take a big hit, but they still have that great defense. The Lions were a pretty good team this year that just ran into some, unfortunate situations that kept them from making the playoffs, but they've got a brand new head coach. And the rumor is they're going to maintain Jim Bob Cooter as their offensive coordinator. So look for them to get a leap boost up from that. But the Bears are trying to build something. They're not trying to just make this quantum leap and compete for a year or two and then fall back down. They're really trying to build up. And the reason I'm so excited is not because I'm looking at next year. I'm looking at 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road when the Bears are regularly competing. You look at the coaching staff they have, and it is geared towards building fundamentals and being a fundamentally sound team and teaching young players how to play. Harry Heastan is going to get the most out of all the offensive linemen. I listened to an interview the other day with Howie Long, and they were interviewing about Chris Long and going back-to-back Super Bowls but with different teams, blah blah blah. But he ended up talking about Kyle, and he was saying how they're disappointed with some of the medical setbacks, but he's really excited that his son is going to be working with Harry Heastan, and what the expectation is of just even taking a quantum leap as far as his ability and the whole offensive line. And you look at the offensive coordinator, known as a teacher, offensive mind. You just are establishing guys, and your defense is already in place. You're maintaining most of your coordinator or your coaches. You're maintaining your defensive coordinator, and so you look for some improvements on there once you get a healthy pass rush, and the offense to improve. So yeah, I'm excited because they're building something, and you hope, and the underlying expectation is that you are going to be the team to beat eventually in the NFC North.
Right. That's what makes this just a different process than some of these other teams. Obviously, the NFL, it's known for going from worst to first in so many different scenarios, but this scenario just isn't one of them. At least I don't think. You never know what's going to happen. Heck, they could suck next year, or next year they could make it to the NFC Championship. Who knows? But that's just kind of the way I see it, like you said. It makes you wish you were in, I don't know, the AFC South or something, in a division that's not really good, but that's not the case. The reality is, if the Bears really do want to start contending for division championships, then they got to beat their division. And
yeah, you can't wait for your division to come back to you. You can't wait, once Aaron Rodgers retires. No, you got to go out there and beat Aaron Rodgers. Right. You've got to go out there and beat Matt Stafford. You've got to go out there and beat those teams. You can't just wait for one of the, your division to be bad and then because then, you may win the division and go to the playoffs, but you're going to get bounced by somebody else, because if you're not good enough to take your division and rather than wait for everybody else to trip and fall, then you're not good enough to win a Super Bowl.
I mean, think about it. 3 wins against the NFC North in the last 3 years. You got to be the complete opposite of that, because the last time the Bears went to the playoffs. That was 2010. I'm pretty sure they won every division game but one. So there's a big difference there.
Yeah, it's you got to think back to some of the years that the Bears have been good under Lovie Smith, and they make the playoffs, but they still couldn't beat the Packers. But the Packers weren't that good. And they sort of like, well, everybody else wasn't that good. You backed into the playoffs, and then you got bounced. You got bounced by better teams.
Right. Because in those days, you beat up on the Lions and the Vikings because they were trash. They really were. So it's something that the Bears just have to build a better team than the other teams. It's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, you have to, you gotta be smart in free agency. You've got a lot of money. You gotta be really smart. You've got to hit on most of your guys. You've got to make that first round draft pick an absolute contributor in year one. And you can't do like what you did this year and be like, oh, we got a good draft, but it's going to be on year two that we're going to see the most impact or the real impact of it, and miss on a lot of your free agents. You really got to hit. You've got to get a lot of guys that come in and play above your expectation.
Absolutely. But let's face it, as much as we've clapped for Ryan Pace's draft, the free agents, like we've also said before, really have not worked out. And look, if you just release Glennon, you forget about Glennon, you put that all behind you, but you also say that can't happen again. I don't think it will, but it can't, no matter what, it cannot happen again.
Yeah, you can't. You can't have that. And you can't bring in Marcus Coopers and Marcus Wheatons and expect to stay in this job. I've liked drafts that he's had, that Ryan Pace has had. I like this coaching hire. I like the support staff that he's brought in. And there's been some free agency moves that he's been good, but for the most part, free agency has been abysmal, and it's got to be better. It has to be better.
Yeah, it really does. There's no more, at this rate, you're at the point of the rebuild where you can't really afford to miss on any of these big key free agents. Yeah, if you have like a camp invitee or a practice squad guy that doesn't really turn out, that's one thing. But if you're signing a veteran or some kind of player to have a deep impact on your team, it has to be a hit. There's no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's right now you are absolutely decimated as far as wide receivers. You're going into the season with Kevin White. I think he's the only wide receiver they have on the roster. And
isn't what about why am I blanking? Cam Meredith. What about him?
No,
wasn't he?
He's a free agent.
Is he a free agent? Huh. I thought he had one more year for some reason.
Cam Meredith is a free agent. Kendall Wright's a free agent. Everybody's Marcus Wheaton is under contract too, but you figure that he's going to get cut. So Marcus Wheaton and Kevin White. That's a dynamic duo right there.
You need more. I mean, I don't know what their plans with Dontrell Inman is. I'm wondering if they bring him back on a smaller deal, because Inman, when he came into the Bears last year, he seemed like this elite guy, but that's just because you were comparing him to what the Bears had. Essentially, he's just the depth guy that can go downfield.
Yeah, it's the Bears have a lot of holes to fill. So and they have a good division. So I don't expect them to compete for this division next year, but I do expect them to be competitive. I don't expect them to get blown out of games. There may be a game or two where it gets a little out of hand, but for the most part, I expect them to be competing in every game. They may lose, but they're going to be a team that you're like, man, I may got the win, but I came out of that game really having to fight to get the victory. That's what I want to see next year.
Yeah, and think about it. That's kind of what they were for a lot of last year. You look at the games they could have won and should have won, but didn't. But look, they should have beaten Atlanta. They really should have beaten the Vikings at home. Obviously they played terrible against the Packers twice and against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They really should have beaten the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, there were multiple reasons for that one. But you look at what the Bears did last year. If they would have taken some of those games that were really close, they would have been close to 500.
Yeah. But one more thing I wanted to mention about the Bears is I've read a couple of reports where people are saying that the Bears might draft a guard in the first round, the guy from Notre Dame, and cut the guy they got from the Packers, old man,
Josh
Sitton. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I get Josh Sitton makes a lot of money, but when he was healthy, he played well last year.
Yeah, he's getting old, but he's still at least functional.
He was the best guard the Bears had last year. And that includes when Cody Whitehair moved over to guard. Cody Whitehair is a very good player, but he's gotten to be a good center. Leave him at center. And I get this guy may be really good, but you don't cut a good player because you brought in. I'm not above drafting a guard. If Harry Hiestand, who worked with him, says this guy is going to be, an absolute Hall of Fame guy, and you're going to put him in that guard spot, and he's going to play there for 15 years and never have to worry about him. All right, I'm good with that. But you can't just be like, well, we're going to cut Josh Sitton because you're not a good enough team to cut a player like him yet.
Right. Exactly.
Especially when you don't know what's going to happen with Kyle Long because he just had another surgery on his neck.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to have another surgery too. So who knows what his health is? Maybe it's Kyle Long that you got to cut because he's just not healthy. But you have so much salary cap space, it doesn't make any sense to cut Josh Sitton. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And like I said, I understand that he's getting older, but who would you replace him with? If you had to cut Kyle Long, like you said, they're not good enough yet. They don't have enough depth. It wouldn't make any sense. So my opinion is you hang on to him another year, which, I still think he could play pretty well if he's healthy. And then in the future, you get more depth, and that's how you're going to replace him. But at the time being, it's just doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
Yeah, I get Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame looks really good. And from what I've heard, I haven't watched any tape on him yet. But based on what I've heard, is that he's a guard. He's an inside guy, not a tackle. Then, even if, you may draft him because it's definitely an upgrade especially over an older Josh Sitton and an injured Kyle Long. But it doesn't make any sense, especially with the injuries you've had, is just pay Josh Sitton. And if you need to put somebody on the bench, it's fine. He's still getting paid. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have pay the guys, keep your quarterback healthy.
Yeah, that's priority number one. And let's face it, it's not like the Bears are strapped for cash.
Yeah, I mean, especially if they make cuts that I think they'll make, Marcus Wheaton, Marcus Cooper, etc., that they're going to have like 80 some $million to spend. There's money's not an issue. They could sign everybody they want.
Exactly. I mean, think about all the money they have now and then plus those cuts. That's one of the nice things about the Bears is that you don't have to worry about that. They have so much cap space. That's why money shouldn't be an issue here. Even for an older player.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is you got money, pay the guys. When you get to the point where you're good enough to cut a Josh Sitton, then you'll be making the playoffs and you'll be competing for Super Bowls. Right now, you can't cut players and not replace them. And as much as I agreed that Alshon Jeffrey did not want to be here, and I'm fine that they let him go, I was fine with them trading Brandon Marshall, and it's fine to do those things. You just have to replace the talent that you traded away.
Right.
So fine, you got rid of Brandon Marshall. Who did you bring in to replace him? You let Alshon Jeffrey walk. Who did you replace him with? Those are the things. If you're going to do these things to do addition by subtraction, that's fine. But somebody else has to step up and make up the production gap. And they haven't done that. And they've just progressively gotten worse. And I get you got to tear it down and build it up from the bottom. It's what the Cubs did. It's what a successful rebuild, complete rebuild of an organization is. But you can't expect to win if you don't replace talent.
Yeah, you bring up the Alshon Jeffrey thing, and someone made, I think, the best point on the Alshon Jeffrey situation. They were basically talking about how we knew that Jeffrey didn't want to play here, and it would have taken like a ridiculous amount of money or something like that to get him to stay here instead of going to Philly. The mistake wasn't necessarily letting him walk. It was the fact that they didn't replace him with anything whatsoever. I think that's the fair way to assess the situation, personally.
Yeah, you can't make a guy play where he doesn't want to play. Alshon, people are like, whoa, look what he's done for Philly. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to play for the Bears. He just didn't want to be here. And so you can't make a guy that doesn't want to play there. And that's fine. Let him go. You're not going to pay him. The only way you would have kept him is by either offering him just absolutely making him the richest wide receiver in football or franchise tag him. And you're not going to do either one of those. So you lost out. But you're right. You have to have a plan B. You can't go in and be like, our plan A is to make this guy that doesn't want to play here for the amount of money, less money than he wants to play for. No, that's not how that works. So you have to have a plan B. Plan A was get Alshon to come back. And then plan B had to be something and you didn't have a plan B. If Marcus Wheaton and Kendall Wright were your plan Bs, then you had terrible plan Bs.
Yeah, those were more like plan Ds.
Absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, not much else Bears to talk about there. I just really wanted to answer that question. Baseball, we're 2 weeks from pitchers and catchers reporting, and we still are asking, where are you at?
Where you at?
No signing of Yu Darvish, no signing of Jake Arrieta, no signing of Alex Cobb, no signing of Lance Lynn. Nobody's even talking about Lance Lynn.
No one's even said a peep about Lance Lynn.
I mean, the other day, I finally heard somebody mention Lance Lynn, and I went, oh man, I forgot he's a free agent. That's how low on the off the radar he is.
Yeah, exactly. You keep forgetting about him. I think also it didn't help that last year, even though his ERA numbers looked good, his FIP numbers looked terrible, and he had that injury. He was coming back from that. If this was the Lance Lynn of pre-injury, he'd probably be getting a little more coverage because he was really a good pitcher before then. So circumstances may be a little different for that. But yeah, I mean, overall, heard really nothing about him, no rumors whatsoever. And even so, like Alex Cobb, let's wind the clocks back to November, December. Remember when I said on the show, I'm like, he'll be a Cub, just a matter of when. And I was really on board the Cobb train, but now that there's all this Yu Darvish rumors swirling, I feel like Alex Cobb instead of Darvish would be like as someone said, I can't remember who said this, it'd be like getting socks for Christmas.
That is really true.
I can't remember who said it, so I'm sorry if you're listening and I can't remember who said it. I am very sorry, but yeah, that's a good comparison, whoever that was.
That's hilarious. But yeah, there's just this is a total slow-moving train, and I honestly thought when the Brewers made the trade for Christian Yelich and then signed Locane that we were suddenly going to start seeing some movement because people are like, oh crap, the Brewers made that first big move. We've got to react.
Yeah, I thought it was the first domino.
Yeah, and I thought once a domino fell, it would all start going. And everybody is holding strong, which is really freaking me out. Like, you just hope that for the Cubs, no news means good news.
Well, and that's what a lot of people are saying. And look, the last, I don't know, week, you've been hearing the active talks with Yu Darvish. Heck, I think it was Wednesday. There were a lot of rumors talking about Yu Darvish. And that was when it almost felt like Darvish coming to the Cubs was a sure thing. And then since then, it's like, well, nothing really. The Twins are still interested. This here. A bunch of radio people said the Brewers were out on Yu Darvish, and then their owner said, no, we still might have funds to sign one of those guys. So everything is just all over the place. And the latest reports I'm reading is a lot of people are still pretty, I mean, not everybody, but there's still a lot of ideas that from people that he's going to be a Cub. A lot of people think he's going to be a Cub, and a lot of ideas that they have an agreement, but they're working on like a 6-year, or they're just kind of working out the contract, or that Yu Darvish has expressed interest and the Cubs are kind of the ones trying to offer. So I don't know what the hell is going on here. I really don't.
Yeah, it's something's got to happen because we're 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting.
Yeah, it's getting really, really close. It's amazing. Remember when we said before New Year's, there's no way they'd wait till the new year? And now here we are. It's almost February.
Yeah, this is got to be one of the weirdest off seasons in baseball that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it
definitely
is.
I can't think of a weirder one. This market is. You just wonder if you're going to see major free agents sit out spring training.
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to ask that, and a lot of people are. What was it? Kenley Jensen bringing up the whole strike thing or whatever. Did you hear about that?
No.
Well, like, I can't remember exactly what he said. I'm going to look it up now, but obviously even people who are signed are taking notice to all this. I mean, how could you not? Yeah, here it is. Bill Shaken reported this, and it's been reported by other guys too, but he said, amid the chill in free agent market, Dodgers Kenley Jensen says, quote, maybe we have to go on strike, end quote. And the article says, Dodgers closer Kenley Jensen wonders whether players might have to go on strike. I'm not sure how serious he was when he said that, but the fact that that's even being said just goes to show that even the players who have signed with teams think this is really weird and that this is just unusual altogether.
It is really weird. It's absolutely weird that you're not seeing the movement of big time free agents. Um, so I don't know what else to say. Is the players union in baseball is probably the strongest player union in all of sports, and they're really upset because this is not beneficial to the players and as a whole. I get, like, at some point there's got to be a breaking point. Is teams don't want to pay this luxury tax, and players still want to get this money, and fans don't want to pay any more to watch baseball. Something has to give. Somebody has to make a concession, and I don't know who it is. And right now, the owners are pushing that it's the players. The players should make less money so we can maintain ticket prices and still make our profits.
Yeah, it's going to be a matter of who gives and where, especially with Jake Arrieta, because, like, let's just say the Cubs get Yu Darvish. The only places I could think of going right now would be like the Cardinals or the Yankees. I doubt the Dodgers, but you'd maybe consider them, even though there's the whole issues with the luxury tax. There's just not a lot of options for him. He's not going to go to some rebuilding team. Maybe a dark horse would be the Phillies, because though I don't think they're a contending team, they're kind of trying to contend. To me, it looks like they're doing that whole rebuild while contending type deal. So maybe that'd be a dark horse. But overall, I just don't see a lot of options that would fit him or he would fit in with.
Yeah, and that's just a reality. And I also saw that the Players Union is filing a grievance because there are certain teams like the Pirates and the Marlins that are just taking advantage of the equities in baseball, and they're getting money from the high spending teams and not spending it.
Yeah.
And that's wrong too. That's really wrong. Is if you're going to charge fans to come see a game and you're not going to give them a good product, and you're still going to collect money from the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Cubs, and you're just going to pocket it. Come on now. That's ridiculous.
This whole thing is just, it's really annoying. I think at the end of the day, though, everyone will get signed, and then...
What's that?
Everyone will get signed at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they're going to go deep into spring ball in the beginning of the year and they're still not going to sign. That's just pure ludicrous. And if that ever did happen, I would never try to make a prediction about anything again, but I would stand by my gut in saying that they're going to be signed by spring ball. And I know this is the one who stood by his gut before New Year's, but it's almost beyond imagination thinking they wouldn't sign eventually. I mean, they will. Maybe it's not what they intended, but they're not going to sit around and take nothing when they can get a pretty good something still.
And I'm just really impressed that the players have held out this long, because I would be freaked out. I would just be like, I'm accepting the low ball offer. Let me get a team. Let me know where I'm going. Let me find an apartment before spring training. But, I guess these agents are really keeping a calm presence on their players.
And that's the interesting thing, because you look at the rumors that have gone around, a lot of it is just so much speculation where there's really no proof of like actual sources saying these things. It's like, well, we know that there have been talks with Yu Darvish, no confirmation. Like there's so much speculation where you don't even know if there's any legit leeway. Usually if there's like a big rumor with some of these guys, you'll hear it from like multiple verified sources. The most you're hearing about now is speculation from verified sources with no like real evidence, or a bunch of so-called sources trying to make these claims, and there's no real evidence to back that up either.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. It's eventually we're going to have news to report. Yeah, you would assume, and the rumors were that Darvish was going to sign by the end of the week, and we're there. It's like we're at the 11th hour.
Those rumors came up Tuesday, Wednesday, and end of the week means like Friday. So it's past that.
I'm talking if you're going the definition of the end of the week. I mean, we got 4 hours left before this week is over. Less than 4 hours as the time of recording this. So, I mean, you have to imagine that in the next 2 weeks, most of these guys are going to sign. You have to imagine.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just right. That's logical, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would only make sense to me, really. And since there's so little information, like there's people, I'm going to go back to the speculating thing. There have been people speculating that a deal with Darvish and the Cubs is pretty much in place, but there's terms being worked out, like I said earlier, and then maybe the case with some other people. But the funny thing is, Darvish has been by far the most talked about one here. What have you really heard about Arrieta?
Nada.
Exactly. You've heard nothing. You've only heard team could be possibly interested, aka like the Cardinals or the Brewers, but that's literally all we've got.
I mean, I've heard that a rumor that the Twins are going after a starting pitcher and that they really want Darvish, and Alex Cobb is their backup if they don't get Darvish. Not Jake Arrieta.
I mean, it kind of sounds like the Cubs.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I think teams are really, they don't think Jake Arrieta is going to be a viable pitcher for the length of the contract.
Well, look, and this is coming from one of the biggest Arrieta fans you meet. I think even I can admit that he's hit his peak. He's has the ability to be good in the future, but you're not going to get anything like you got from 2014 to 2016. He's peaked.
Yeah, I mean, you might get a solid, number 3 pitcher, a really good 3 pitcher, maybe a mediocre number 2 pitcher with him for the next couple of years. But if you're signing him for more than 3 years, then it better be a front-loaded contract that he's going to be a back end of the rotation guy if he's playing after that, years 4 or 5.
Right, exactly. That's the thing about those long deals. When you look at them, you say, well, typically those long deals, you get the best in the first few years, and the last years of that contract, you're like, well, not as good now, but it was worth it at the time. So Arrieta's 31 now, and last year he was very inconsistent, but he still had a 3.53 ERA, 4.16 FIP, so that's a considerable raise, especially with like the walks really going up, the home runs really going up, but you still see the potential there to be a good pitcher. But you imagine the trends as they're going right now. You look back past 3 years, I'd say his really effective years, if he has any, would probably be another 2 or 3 at the most.
Yeah, I agree with you. And he also has never had a major arm injury. Darvish has. And usually you consider, they got their major arm injury out of the way. We're not expecting another one. Jake is a arm thrower, and he's got a wonky delivery. You have to assume that, he's going to have an arm injury. And if he's in his, mid-30s when he has it, good luck. Not
yeah, and
value.
Also Also consider that he's had a hamstring injury, and hamstring injuries can be the most tricky injuries to deal with outside like a torn ligament or something.
Yeah. I'm looking at his 2018 projections. They are projecting him as an 11-9 pitcher with a 3.94 ERA and a 1.27 WHIP.
Are you looking at Fangraphs?
RotoChamp.
Okay, because right now I'm looking at the projections, a little different for Baseball Reference. I'm going to look at Fangraphs too, but what was the ERA you said?
3.94 ERA.
Interesting. Fangraphs has him at 3.35, so considerably lower, but only at 164 innings pitched.
Yeah, this has 178 innings pitched.
Yeah, it's quite the difference.
Yeah, so I don't know what to expect of this guy. I don't see him being I just don't see him being an effective pitcher beyond 3 years.
This is interesting. You know what? Fangraphs, they have him at an ERA of 4.20 and a FIP of 4.11.
There you go.
Because, I mean, look, last year his FIP was 4.16, so you consider the ERA may go up, but the FIP may go down a little bit. They project to be a higher WAR next year, 2.7 compared to 2.4 last year. In terms of WHIP, let's see. Yeah, they projected a 1.32, technically higher than last year, but let's see.
It's a far cry from 2015's 0.86.
Well, yeah, that year was ridiculous. Think about it. A 177 ERA, a 235 FIP, and 229 innings pitched. And here's to me a really staggering number. 48 walks all year in 2015. 2016, he had a 3.10 ERA, a 3.52 FIP. That's still really, really good, but 76 walks. And then last year, the walks went down, even though the innings went down. I'd have to look at his K rate, but what really shot up were the home runs given up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you're going to see that. I get it. He's evolving as a pitcher. You're going to see different things. And you saw the transition where he got better, but yeah, I just don't see him being this front end guy. So you can't give him just this insane amount of money. It just doesn't make any sense from an organization point of view.
Yeah, it's just the risk factors involved would be pretty high. You have concern about the lower velocity. I think the movement is still really good on his pitches. The movement's fantastic, but you've seen the command go up and down. Here's something interesting. Also looking at Fangraphs, which to me is like the holy grail of baseball statistics. Think about this. 2014, his walk rate, 6.7. 15, 5.5. Only 5.5. With a K rate of 27.1. Then the K rate dipped to 23.9 and the base on ball rate rose to nearly 10%. Then last year it dropped a little back to 7.8, but that's still significantly more than the 5.5 against.
And what was his whip? His whip last year was 1.22.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, it's not terrible, but it's closer to his Orioles numbers than they were the Cy Young numbers.
Here's two very good stats to note. Since his first full season with the Cubs, which was 2014, because he played for two teams in 2013, you look at his average against and his BABIP, 214, 184 and 15, 194 and 16. So when he was still struggling with the command in 16, he was still getting batted 194 against. Then last year was up to 234 and a 279 BABIP, where the year before it was 246 and then 274 before that. So the BABIP did increase as well as the average against, but I think overall a lot of that has to do with command and how they're making contact with the ball because of the command, where the ball's being placed.
Yeah, walks and lack of command is it's going to kill this guy. And I don't dislike Jake Arrieta. I like Jake Arrieta very much. He needs to have real expectations of what, teams aren't paying for what he did in 2015. They're paying for what they expect him to do in 2018, 2019, 2020.
Exactly. There's one more kind of stat line I wanted to share with you about Arrieta as well. The batted ball section on Fangraphs, if you ever go on Fangraphs and you scroll down, it's basically, batted ball is obviously contact against. There's soft percent, medium percent, hard percent. I don't know exactly what variables they are, but I do have to believe that it has to do with some sort of exit velocity measurement or some calculation. But last year, the hard percent against was 29.4%. And a fly ball percentage of 34.4. Go back to 2015, the fly ball percent was 22.8 and 22.1 hard contact. So, right there, that just explains a lot of the increase in the home runs and the increase in FIP and ERA and everything. So, the reasons for it, obviously, the command is slipping, and I also think that some people may have just kind of figured him out a little bit. So there's got to be some more counter adjustments, even though we did see some counter adjustments late last year in the second half where he kind of pitched to a more easy contact against, but he was still getting hit harder last year than he was in any year as a Cub.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, that matches up with what you saw with the eyeball test as well.
Which, to me, it proves that stats are a legitimate way to look at things.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're like, stats don't make any sense. Like, Pro Football Focus loving Adrian Amos as a safety and Bears fans wanting to punch it in the face. But in baseball stats are great. And,
yes. They're the best in my opinion.
Yeah, you can quantify pretty much anything. And Jake Arrieta, when you look at his advanced stats, they match with what you're watching. If you just have a person that, is not into sabermetrics, not in these advanced, mathematical functions, and they just watch the game and they describe what they're seeing with him, the stats match up.
Exactly. You can put it in every category and it all connects to one concept. The fact that he was getting harder and the ERA went up. You saw the contact was harder. The percentage of hits was harder. The command was not as sharp. The walks, hits per innings pitch was higher. I mean, baseball, the way you measure baseball, it's so unique because it's such a unique game from other sports. But as much, I feel like advanced stats in baseball, because they account for the random chance of so many things happening in baseball, because the stats actually account for that, that's why you see a lot of accuracy.
Yep. Fully agree. So, yeah, all in all, we might have another boring baseball talk next week, but by the time pitchers and catchers report, I fully expect at least 3 of the 4 big pitchers to have signed, and most of the top free agents overall to be signed by somebody.
Yep. Or you could be listening to this show and someone will sign with the Cubs. Who the hell knows at this point?
But lastly, I want to talk about the Blackhawks, and I don't want to dwell too much because they haven't played too many games. They had the bye week, and then they go into the All-Star break. But this team is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's not looking great. They dominated a terrible Detroit team the other night, but
you watch that team, and that Detroit team looked awful.
yeah, they're bad. And they should have smoked them twice, to be honest, but
But the thing is if you watch, if the you expanded the net size by like 5% each, height in both sides, Detroit may have won that game because they hit iron so many times in that game and they didn't count. But, the defense was not there to help the goalie. I think that was Forsberg game. And, he made some stops, but he just looks lost sometimes. It looks like he's in slow motion. Like he sees by the time he recognizes that the shot is coming and reaches out, it's already in the net. And it's night and day difference between what we're seeing with Forsberg and Glass and what we saw with Corey Crawford.
yeah, it really is. It's just the same annoying problems all the time, and it gets tiring. I just had such an awful feeling in my stomach, even though they got a point, when they lost to the Maple Leafs 6 seconds in overtime. It's like, really?
Yeah, and you just, like, that game was really indicative of kind of what's going on. I mean, other than Corey Crawford being injured, not being able to establish consistent offense, and bad play by the defense. You scored a power play goal in that, but I really feel that was sort of a cheapie. And the defense is just so reactionary. They're not the ones that are driving establishing the dominance and taking it to the offense. They're just really reactionary, and they're always chasing.
Yes.
I feel like they're just chasing all the time. And it's the exact same thing you saw with the Red Wings in that game. The last game is their defense was just chasing the pass, chasing the guy with the puck, always chasing, never dominating. And it leads to easy shots. And that's what happens with the Hawks, is they're always behind. And I just feel like at this point that they maybe have one top 4 type guy, and that's Duncan Keith. And he's starting to look like a shell of himself.
Yeah, he hasn't. We give Seabrook all this crap, but Duncan Keith hasn't exactly been lighting it up either. He really hasn't.
I mean, he hasn't looked terrible, but he just hasn't looked good either. He's just a guy, and he is far and away like your best guy, and that's really, really sad that we're talking in these terms, but we're really, we may have a lot of guys that are talented on offense, and their forward pool has a lot of talented guys, and I just feel like there's just no consistency in their line. But that's neither here nor there. But they have a lot of NHL defensemen, but they don't have a lot of top 4 blue liners. They have a lot of, bottom pair guys.
Yeah, I think that the appropriate depth that the Hawks had for all those years during the championships, it's just not there. And when you don't have the depth, obviously that's a big problem, number one. And number two, the chemistry just can't be established like it once was.
Yeah, absolutely. And, these young defensemen are not progressing like you really want them to. They're not becoming these top 4 guys that you really expect them to. And you've made some moves, and none of these guys have worked out to what you were hoping they would be. And it's really frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. I think one problem that is going to reside for a while is we're waiting for a really kind of big young defensive star. We don't really, we have some, we've drafted some, but they're a long ways away. So you're going to have to pick up, like you said, young guys who have some potential but aren't great, where you don't have a next young Keith or Seabrook coming anytime soon.
No, and you know, you don't even want to hear about a new Seabrook coming because this Seabrook is so bad. And that first goal of Toronto that Toronto scored, that was just Seabrook being bad. That was all Seabrook being terrible.
And it's just painful to watch because he was so good for so long. And obviously you knew that there's going to be a decline with every single star player you have in sports. I just didn't think it was going to be this quick. But account for all the miles that are on that guy and all those guys. That speeds up the fading away process.
And the one last thing I wanted to mention, I mean, you may have some more, but the last thing I had noted was Kane was interviewed, and he said that they were talking about some power play strategy in practice the other day and some new ideas. And I was just thinking, I was like, what new ideas are you just coming around with? Because the power play has been terrible for the Blackhawks for a couple of seasons now.
I was going to say, you're just realizing this?
Yeah, it's like that's what you're just realizing this now, and you're just coming up with new ideas. There's something seriously wrong with the power play, and it's not new. This is not new at all. I mean, it's part of the reason that Kitch got fired.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not improved whatsoever. So there's a little more problem to the organization's power play unit than just that. It is so annoying how the same problems persist with it over and over and over. And all we hear is we got to be better, but nothing's getting better. So it's frustrating.
Absolutely. We don't have another game, I think, until Tuesday. And we'll see where we're at, but if you look at the standings, they've really got to play well to even make the playoffs this year.
Which is why I think at this point, I know they're going to play their hearts out, but if I'm just looking at it from an analytical standpoint, I think they're pretty much cooked. I think that last just bad stretch at home, it was at home too. That killed the season's chances. If they could have won a few of those, then I think we'd be in a little bit of a different situation, but they haven't won them.
Yep. So I'm not anticipating at this point playoffs. But I hope I'm surprised positively, but my expectation is that we're going to be just watching the playoffs from the couch.
Yeah, I have that vibe as well. I have a few questions about the Hawks I wanted to ask you. I figured I could just jump right into that if you didn't have anything more to add.
I have nothing else to add. Jump right in.
Okay, this is going to spark some controversy, but I'm not saying this is going to fix anything, but there's a really big part of me that thinks we just need to say goodbye to Patrick Sharp.
Yeah, he's playing terribly.
Let any other guys play. He's just done.
He's just eating minutes from somebody else. You've got young guys and they need to develop. That's the thing. Is these young guys got to develop, and to develop, you need minutes on the ice. And Patrick Sharp is taking up minutes.
Like, if you really want to make Thomas Yurko work, because let's face it, it's not like Thomas Yurko's been bad. He just hasn't done anything. But if you want more room to try to make these guys work, or you want to try Hinostroza in different places, then you want to have those spots open.
Absolutely. You got to have these spots open. You got to be able, you can only get so good playing in the AHL. Is you've got to move up and play in the NHL, and you've got to play legitimate minutes. You've got to develop these guys. And I feel like Quenneville's his go-to is playing young guys if he has to. Not I'm going
Right.
to develop them. And this is a team that's in flux, and their current championship window is pretty much closed. That doesn't mean they can't open another one, but as it is, they've got to make some serious changes if they're going to reopen that window.
Right. That's why, like you said, it's closed right now. But if they make the appropriate changes, then we could see a Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews led team have another chance at a championship. But like you said, there has to be a lot of changes, which is why I think if you had a core of 3 untouchables right now, it would be Kane, Toews, and Saad in terms of forwards. And maybe add a 4th Hinostroza because I think he's going to be a valuable asset moving forward. And then you could consider DeBrincat too. But I'm just saying like veteran established core because DeBrincat and Hinostroza are still young, so they're probably going to be untouchable. But if you're just talking from a veteran core standpoint, Saad, Kane, Toews are probably your guys you'd keep around. Like, I mean, if they cut Patrick Sharp right after the All-Star break, as much as I loved Patrick Sharp for so many years, I would be okay with the move. I think would be appropriate. If you got rid of some other veterans via trade or whatever, and you really focused on getting younger, then, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's just going to be hard to do because there's not a lot of tradable assets on this team. The most tradable asset I think right now is Artem Anisimov, and he's been injured for some time, but he was putting up some good numbers beforehand.
Real quick is right now the league average for age of a player on a team in the NHL is 27.7. On the Blackhawks, it's 28. The average points for an NFL or NHL team is 55. The Blackhawks are at 53. So you're looking at a below average team right now.
Yeah, even if the record doesn't say it, it's... Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
So you've got a major overhaul to do, and and part of that is making sure that your young players are developing, and that's really what you should be doing right now. Going, our chances of making the playoffs not so good. Is let's develop and come back and get them next year.
I think now they have to pick that lane. I don't want to see any more standing of pat. Like, oh, we'll see. Sometimes you just got to take action. And to me, there's nothing that tells me this team is going to go on a huge run to the Stanley Cup this year. And you know what? If it means shutting it down for a year and doing what we've been talking about, I think we could survive a year if they were really serious, made some drastic changes now, and then next year they're back into contending, then you're going to look back at it and say you didn't mind kind of taking a year to retool things a bit. I mean, think about it. They were kind of supposed to be doing that last year, but the goaltending was so good that they pulled enough wins out of their ass to be the number 1 seed in the playoffs in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Really weren't supposed to be that good. And even Kane admitted, like, our record was a lot better than our team really was. He even said that. Because they stole so many games last year.
Did you have any more questions?
Yeah, I had one more. This is kind of hypothetical because we don't know when Corey Crawford's going to be back, but at one point, do you just kind of say, shut Corey Crawford down for the rest of the year because it's not worth it? Is there a point where you'd say that? Maybe if it's now, maybe it's in a month. It's hypothetical. What's your opinion?
Shut him down for the season. I don't know. I would at least get him on the ice and playing a little bit, but I don't know if you ride him hard. For the long term, even if he comes back soon, is you just don't want you don't want to take a risk going forward because he's too important. But at some point, you do have to make a poop or get off the pot with him. And I don't know. I don't know what that point is. And at this point, he's not even skating. They're talking about maybe he skates sometime after the All-Star break, and maybe. So who knows where we're at with this?
I know it's a really complicated hypothetical question, but I feel like it's something that the Blackhawks have been thinking about, because I think they're thinking about every single scenario possible right now, and one of those scenarios had to come up.
Yeah. So I don't know. What's your thought on what to do with Corey Crawford?
I mean, right now it's one of those things where you have to take it by year, because obviously injuries and all that stuff are complicated, especially with the injuries they're talking about. When they say they could be out for a short time, it could turn into a really long time. If they say it's going to be a long time, sometimes they can heal things quicker. So it's a little complicated there, but they shouldn't try to force anything at this point, especially. And you know what? If he's still not well in a month or so, then they got to find some way where they can kind of get him back into action, but not really doing anything hardcore, because you don't want to risk injury, but you don't want to completely take him out of hockey the rest of the way if he can at least do some form of hockey activity.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's going to wrap up this episode. Thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, and which I found out the other day. I bought a smart TV for our upstairs, and I was putting apps on there so I could do other things. And if you have the TuneIn app on your smart TV, you can listen to this podcast, and it brings up the logo on your screen and it plays the episode. So if you have the TuneIn app, you can listen via the TuneIn app too, just like you can with Waddle and Sylvia and the other major shows. So yeah, subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the TuneIn app. Share it with your friends. But thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Denver New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on the plains.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.